All right, welcome back to Book Nook Brews. This is episode 6, but it's episode 2 of Fourth Wing.
Hell yeah.
Before we get into what we're covering today, let's cover our
Drinks.
brew of the day.
That's true.
I myself have a lovely Corona Extra with lime and salt.
And I have a nice little Blue Moon with some nice orange in it. So good. So good.
You know, when these are beers, we could probably call it Book Nook Brewskis.
You really want to go with a brewski, huh? We'll take it into consideration. I'll talk to the board. We'll see what they decide.
But yeah, so we're covering chapters 11 through 22.
Yes.
Obviously spoilers. But I guess we can start with the recap.
Quickly.
Yeah.
I would like to know your thoughts before.
I am really liking it. Like a lot. Except for the last chapter. That last chapter lost me.
We'll
get into it. Yeah.
Well, let's get into it. All right. Let's start with the recap. Let's start off with chapter 11. It's presentation day, but it's also time for the real gauntlet. That's what we're starting off with.
Yeah.
Dane is still telling Violet not to go, but she says she has a plan to complete the
Hashtag
course.
fuck Dane.
Huh?
Hashtag fuck Dane.
Honestly, yeah.
Dane,
Hashtag
get
fuck
out of
Dane.
here. Hashtag Dane die. Hashtag.
Essentially, she used the daggers on the chimney, but also I think it was the rope that she used on the chimney. Regardless, she used the daggers, especially at the ramp portion of the gauntlet, and she pretty much completes it. She goes through everything, and she uses things to her advantage.
So just to recap, because this was never mentioned, like last chapter, we just ended off of she was struggling, like during the practice of the gauntlet, like climbing something up. We didn't even really know. So now this was like clear to us. It was like a little. What would you?
She had to climb up the chimney. If I remember.
It's like they said chimney, but it's it built like a chimney where you basically have to run up the walls almost to climb to the top.
Like Mario.
Yeah. Where you have to kind of, I guess you would have to essentially go back and forth between the walls and go up there. But she couldn't even jump to the chimney.
Nope, not at all.
Like she couldn't jump. I think if there was a ramp. No, there was a ramp. You had to run up onto the chimney, if I remember correctly, or something like that. There was something got you to the chimney.
Yeah.
So just getting to the chimney was her challenge, when everybody else, the chimney was the challenge. But so she used the rope to swing into the chimney. Mm-hmm. And then while she was in the chimney, she used her dagger to climb up, to essentially act as a pole.
But there was also another portion where she had to climb up. It was two parts. It was the chimney, but it was also she had to climb up the gauntlet. And essentially there is a ramp for her to get up through it.
Was that like the little wall they have at like we said last episode, but like in American Ninja Warrior?
Yeah, exactly. And she used her dagger. She essentially punctured the ramp to
stay,
fling herself into it or over it. And so obviously she completes it with these two methods. She's able to complete it. And as soon as she gets to the bottom or back with like everyone, Amber Mavis calls her a cheater and tells Xaden that she should be disqualified for it because she used her daggers and she's not supposed to use anything else except just her abilities. Mm-hmm. Violet, however, argues otherwise and tells her that per the codex, because she crossed the parapet with them, they are essentially considered a part of the rider.
Right. Like you were allowed to carry whatever you could carry into there, and those are essentially part of your being.
Exactly. And so they're part of her. Amber can't say shit. And Xaden, she's like, she has you. She's right. And even if it's by a technicality, she won that argument.
Yeah.
And so she passes. And that's pretty much the highlights from chapter 11. Now let's get to chapter 12. Oof. This one had me, I was like, oh, nice. So it's time for the cadets to cross the field of the dragons. Each squad has to get in formation, and they have to leave a 7-foot distance between each cadet in case a dragon decides to scorch one of them. Because, you know, they're a little quirky. During this part, they pass a small feather tail, and some people joke that it should bond with Violet since they're both small and weak. In this feather tail, I believe in this one, Violet calls it like Goldie because it is like a golden color.
Yeah.
But this feather tail just kind of looks at them. But a lot of people start calling Violet, or who was it? It might have been Tynan, called Violet weak. And someone goes up to Tynan and is like, you can't be saying that in front of all the dragons. They're going to hear you. You're calling one of your own squad mates weak. What do you think that's going to do to them? Well, in this little walk, should we say, 2 people get scorched. Pryor gets scorched for being too indecisive, and Luca gets scorched for being insufferable, essentially, for talking too much and just whining and complaining. The dragons just did not see that fit. But then a green dragon sniffs Violet out. And the only reason why they're kind of intrigued by her is because they smell Myra's dragon scale on Violet's armor or, well, her clothing. And Violet tells them, it's like, hey, you're smelling that because it's part of my sister. It's kept me safe. Don't say anything. And after that, they kind of just leave her alone. And she walks back with the rest of her squad mates. And that's the highlight from chapter 12. Chapter 13. Ooh, I feel like these next 2 chapters are by far my favorite. Let's get into to chapter 13. It's threshing time. Oh my gosh. And it's always on the 1st of October. Just like October 3rd is always an important day for the Full Metal Brothers, October 1st is an important day for the people in Fourth Wing. It's threshing.
For those who had no idea what she's talking about, it's an anime, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
It's my favorite, okay? Every year I watch it. It's just chef's kiss. Anyways. Violet's in a pit. Essentially, she's searching for a dragon. However, that is until she hears Jack, Oren, and Tynan plotting to kill the Feathertail because they think that they're doing others a favor since she's small and would essentially kill any rider she claims. Violet tries to warn the dragon, but the Feathertail doesn't move. It's like almost unbothered. And so Jack and his little groupie move in and they're dead set on killing the dragon. Violet tells them, hey, you're going to have to get through me before you can even get to her. And they're like, okay, let's do it. And just before the fight begins, Xaden pulls up with his dragon and asks the boy to rethink their decision. And now I get into chapter 14, which I have named my favorite because I feel like this is a part where I was just, while I was reading, I was just squealing all the time. Like, ooh, all the time. Anyways. Even though Xaden is there, he can't really help Violet because of the rules in the codex. And so Violet goes to the dragon or looks at the dragon and is like, are you going to back me up or anything? He's like, can you not even just like use your claws? And that's when she noticed the dragon doesn't even have claws. It has paws. Yeah. It's like that small. Violet begins fighting the little groupies and injures Jack's shoulder, causing him to retreat and leaving her to fight Oren and Tynan. Just as Tynan is about to deliver a kill shot to Violet, she sees that Xaden is about to step in. However, Tynan stumbles back when the black dragon pulls up behind Violet. The black dragon starts to talk to Violet and tells her to move aside. And then she scorches Tynan on sight. Fuck that guy. He also tells Violet to eliminate Oren, but she doesn't. The black dragon then tells Violet to get on his back, and that's when Violet realizes that he chose her. We find out that his name is, and I'm so sorry. I'm really gonna butcher this, but we find out his name is Ternianach, the son of two others. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be so bad. So I'm sorry if I'm gonna butcher this, but he's a son of Mertsiadim and Faya Clan Fuil. Essentially, he's a descendant from a very cunning line. Okay, we're just gonna leave it at that. But he tells her that she can call him Taryn for short.
Yeah. Taryn.
Okay. And Violet is now flying on the dragon when suddenly she slips. And that's where we get into chapter 15. Taryn essentially catches Violet, and this begins to start an ongoing trend of him catching Violet anytime they're flying. But they put on a show, but as he's putting on the show for everyone, he keeps Violet very safe and secure on him as well. Because she can't quite grasp onto him because he is so big and she is so small. Violet then asks him why he chose her, and he tells her that it's because she saved the small feather-tailed dragon. He told her that she's the smartest and she defended the smallest with ferocity. Strength of courage is more important than physical strength. And this is the second time we hear this because she heard this from the professor prior as well.
Yeah.
They approach the landing zone and Violet gets off to tell the role keeper the name of her dragon. Violet sees the feather-tailed dragon and tells her that she's glad to see her, but that she should have flown off quicker. And that's when she hears the dragon's voice in her head telling her, maybe I was saving you. Violet goes up to the role keeper, and just as she's about to say her dragon's name, Violet's mother stops them and tells them to wait until Violet says it, essentially implying that she doesn't think that Taryn chose her. Violet says Taryn's name, and then that's when she hears the small dragons tell her name, which I'm going to butcher again, but she says her name is Andarnarum, or Andarna for short. Violet asks Taryn what she should say, and he tells her to say her name to the role keeper as well. And so she says Andarna's name as well. And that's when all hell breaks loose. Chapter 16. We unfortunately find out that Jack makes it through threshing. He appears on an orange dragon named Bade, and that's just this man, I swear. Anyways, Violet asks Professor Kiori what's going to happen now, and he tells her that the decision now falls on the Empyrean, the dragons. It's not for the humans to decide. This is something that the dragons have to go through, or they have to decide. Violet meets up with Rhiannon, Ryduk, and Sawyer, who all got bonded to a dragon. Go them. Dane finds Violet and pulls her aside. Dane tells Violet that they're going to make her choose, and she has to go for Andarna because she's small, and that will keep her at the college just like the professor as well. He insists that Violet shouldn't choose Taryn because aside from him being too big, he's also mated to Xaden's dragon. I think we've decided it's Scale. And they're the strongest mated pair and are always stationed together, meaning anywhere Xaden goes, Violet goes too. And Dane just pisses me off. Anyways, Dane thinks Violet and Xaden manipulated threshing after Violet tells him what happened with the whole dragon situation. Because he thinks Xaden was there when she fought against the other guys, but thinks that he stepped in when he really shouldn't have. So Xaden is hearing all of this happen and says, listen, that's a very big accusation, but it's not his perspective that matters. It's his dragon's perspective that matters more. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Sorry. But he essentially said that Scale called for Taryn. She doesn't like bullies, and that's exactly what happened. Xaden asked Dane if he would have bent the rules to save Violet in that field, because Xaden was about to until Taryn showed up. And Dane responds with the lovely thing of no. Violet tells Xaden that she thinks that he pushed it, but whatever. It shows another part of Dane of why we just don't like him. Anyways, Xaden and Violet walk off, and Xaden explains to Violet that they're essentially tethered to one another now. Each time a dragon chooses a rider, that bond is stronger than the previous one. When Taryn's last rider died, it nearly killed Taryn. Now that he chose Violet, that bond will be even greater, and if she dies, that causes just a chain reaction. That could kill Taryn, Scale, and also Xaden. Which, by the way, I just want to mention, I know in the last one I said that it's rare for a dragon to bond to another, but I just misread that because it is possible. Not super likely, but I guess with the powerful ones, it's not possible for them. If they had like a very strong bond, they're not likely to bond to another rider if their first one dies.
That's why it's rare.
But for them,
rare was the word.
But that's the thing. There are other dragons that have bonded like 8 times.
Yeah.
But that's because they're not very strong. It's not a strong connection. But that's what we learned. The dragons come back and have ruled that Violet will keep both dragons. The celebration begins, and Violet gets her marking, which is a black relic of a dragon mid-flight, stretching from shoulder to shoulder with the silhouette of a shimmery golden dragon in the center. Dane tells Violet that he would do anything for her and then kisses her. But Violet feels absolutely nothing. She doesn't like it at all. Chapter 17. The gang is all together having breakfast when Imogen? However you just... Huh?
I said Imogen.
Imogen, right? Okay. Imogen and others join in. Imogen tells Violet that they're going to start training together with weights because she needs to get stronger. And Taryn tells Violet that she can trust her. And Imogen also gives her food because at this point, Violet is only eating fruits. Because now that she doesn't have breakfast duty, she doesn't trust anyone like not tampering with her food. And right now she has a huge target. Anyways, it's flight class and Taryn is holding Violet in and she asks him to just loosen up so that she can learn to properly ride. But of course, she falls time and time again, but Taryn always catches her, which is something that not all dragons do for their riders. Some of them will just let them fall. Others do continue to catch their rider, but not all of them. After class, Dane goes to Violet and says the kiss shouldn't have happened because it's frowned upon to be with anyone who's not in your chain of command, which works for Violet because she doesn't really like him that way anymore. And that's how that leaves. Chapter 18. Violet meets up with her squad and finds out that Sawyer has his signet power. He's a metallurgist? How would you say that?
I didn't even try. Just need more metals.
Anyways, yeah, he can manipulate metals. After another flight class, Dane comes up to Violet and pushes her as to why he didn't know that Violet was struggling to stay in her seat during the flight. Violet gets annoyed with him and finally tells him off. She tells him that the reason they aren't together is because he has absolutely no faith in her and he still thinks that Violet won't even make it, even though she has made it this far. She walks away from him and hears someone scream, "Make it stop." A man named Jeremiah is shown to be intrinsic. Essentially, he can read other people's minds, and that signet power, unfortunately, is just an immediate death sentence. A professor comes around and breaks his neck, instantly killing him. And we find out that there are some signet powers that can cause you to just have the death sentence immediately. The scene then the scene then switches over to Violet dreaming, when suddenly she hears Taryn telling her to wake up and move. Violet wakes up and sees 7 cadets in her room, all unbonded. And then suddenly one of the women leaves her room, but that woman she immediately recognizes. And she knew that that's the woman who had to have opened her room. And then one of those men we also find out is Oren. Whoop-de-doo. We expect this. They all start to attack Violet, and she fends them off for the most part until Andarna comes into her room and everything around Violet freezes except her. Andarna screams at Violet to run, and as she gets out of Oren's hold, Xaden appears in the doorway and kills everyone once everyone's like unfrozen. Xaden then takes Violet to the flight field where their dragons are at and wants to know why one moment Xaden saw Violet under Oren's knife and then the next second she was at the doorway. But Taryn doesn't really know. And that's when the lovely Andarna explains, Feathertails shouldn't bond because they can accidentally give their powers to humans. Dragons can't channel, well, not really until they're bigger, but they're all born with something special. However, this is not quite a signet because a signet is a combination of the dragon's power and the human's ability to channel. Essentially, the signet is a reflection of who the writer is at their core. But what Andarna did was give Violet her power, or her gift, because she's still a Feathertail. Essentially, she's still a baby. However, Taryn argues that she's more mature than humans at her age, and no one can really tell Andarna what she can or cannot do. They just can't. However, it seems like Taryn and Scale have taken Andarna under their wing since Andarna's parents died. Xaden and Violet leave them, and Violet tells Xaden that she knew exactly who the 7th cadet was that was not at the scene when he came in. Chapter 20. Xaden moves Liam Mary to Violet's squad because he's a strong rider and can protect her. Violet thinks Xaden is overstepping, but that's barely anything to him. Essentially, any threat to her is also a direct threat to Xaden. Xaden starts talking to everyone and announces the crime of the 7th person who fled the scene. He calls up Amber Mavis, and Dane looks at Violet immediately. He tells her that it can't be true, that she would never as a wing leader. But Violet stands her ground and says it's true. Violet asks Taryn to share the memory, only that one part of her seeing Amber Mavis, and Xaden is standing firm on calling out Amber Mavis. Taryn shares the memory with everyone, and it seals Amber's fate. Taryn scorches Amber, and her dragon lets out pretty much a guttural scream. Chapter 21. Liam and Violet are at the library for her to pick up a couple of things. Jacinia, who is a scribe, who also signs. I love that. I don't know. I like that little piece of inclusion. But Jacinia brings the scrolls and they leave. However, one of those scrolls falls to the ground when they're walking away. And when Violet picks it up, she notices a sentence that catches her attention. It mentions that there's an attack on Somerton. However, the scroll really isn't branded with it being classified, so they assume that they would learn a little bit more about it at Battle Brief. However, when they get to Battle Brief, they don't talk about the attack at all. Violet then starts to second guess herself and thinks that maybe the scroll was marked as classified, but she missed it. But that's pretty much where it leaves that for that. Chapter 22. Violet feels a rush of energy as she's getting ready for bed. It feels like raw, endless power flowing within her. Taryn is finally channeling his power to her. She leaves the room and bumps into Liam. And now she feels like she wants him, but she notices it's not necessarily him that she wants, it's Xaden that she really wants. So she removes herself from the situation and finally ends up outside where she sees where she sees where she sees Xaden smoking a churrum. Xaden helps Violet distance herself from Taryn because right now Taryn and Scale are having a blast together. Violet learns to ground herself until things get heated between her and Xaden and they finally kiss. However, this one feels right to Violet. But then Xaden breaks it off, tells her to get lost, and that's where we end off in chapter 22. I'm assuming this is the part that kind of lost you.
Yeah, but before we get into that, I think we have to go back and state that before her attack, like I don't think you included this, and I think it was important.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before her attack, she was in the middle of a dream, right? Just a normal, like she was like really into a dream.
Yes.
And the reason she woke up because of the attack was because Taryn woke her up.
Yeah.
He was like screaming that to wake up, but that he's also the one that called Xaden to go to the room.
He had mentioned to her that he's almost there. And
yeah.
she's like, who is
like,
almost there?
Yeah. And so I just think it was also important to include the part that he called Xaden over.
Yeah.
Because that, and then there's also something else we have to add. Xaden and Taryn can talk to each other, and Scale can talk to Violet as well.
Yes.
So dragons don't typically talk to anyone but their rider. And
which
now these three dragons, including Andarna.
Andarna doesn't talk to Xaden though. The only reason why
I thought she did, but he didn't hear her clearly. Like he wanted that to be restated.
To what I have understood is the only reason why Violet and Xaden can hear each other's dragons is because they're mated.
Yeah.
But Xaden can't hear Andarna because I could have sworn that she had to tell him what she had said.
Yeah, but I thought that was because he didn't like understand. Like he was like, you have to like say that again. Mm-hmm. He's like, what did you say? But I thought maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, yeah, I guess it makes sense for him not being able to hear her. But either way, both
I know
dragons,
there's just so much content. I really just try to grab what was important. But you're right. That is important to mention that they can hear each other's dragons.
And then it's also important to note just how much they're actually connected. Like they are never alone.
Yeah,
anymore.
I wanted, like, I talked about it a little bit in the recap, but I figured we'd go into a lot more in depth because I feel like that's so huge.
Like the part where they were like in the hallway or whatever, and they hear that person start screaming, and they're like, "Make it stop" or whatever. I thought that was gonna be because he couldn't take the fact that there was a dragon's thoughts in his head too. Like it felt like, I don't know if you remember in Harry Potter, was it the last one? I think it was part 1 of the Deathly Hallows. There's a scene in there where Voldemort is talking to all the students.
Yeah.
And they were like, bring me Harry Potter and nothing will happen to you guys. But there was a bunch of people screaming because they couldn't take the fact that he was in their head.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be something like that, where it was like he finally got to talk to his dragon, whoever he bonded with, and he just went crazy because he couldn't take the fact that there was someone in his head.
But that's the thing. Their dragon has to speak to them for them to even know like their name to tell to the roll keeper.
No, yeah. But the fact that they're always there is what I probably thought it was going to happen to him. But then they described it more, and he's just reading people's thoughts, which also makes sense as to why they have to kill him, because that's a security breach. That's like as soon as he learns something about the plan or whatever, like as soon as someone else hears something about the plan or something, he knows immediately, and he's not cleared to know that information and stuff like that. And there's also some fishy stuff going on. I wanted to bring that up too. I don't know if you've...
Let's see. Let's start from the top though. Let's start from the first couple of chapters, because I don't know what part that's at, but I figured let's start coming from the top and kind of work our way down.
Okay.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you think about presentation day and threshing? We're going to just grip them all together.
First off, we fucking called it.
Yeah, we called it.
Yeah.
We said it.
We called it. She was going to get bonded to the black dragon. Now the second dragon was a surprise.
Yeah,
I didn't think that was
I
going to
was
be
like,
a thing.
okay. And here's the thing. I wanted to mention that when they were walking like across all of the dragons and they came across that one or Andarna, I was like, I was then second guessing myself. I'm like, is she not going to get bonded to the black dragon? I'm like, no, they mentioned him. There has to be a reason. Unless I was like, no. I'm like, what if she does end up like bonding to Andarna? She is small. It makes sense because, you know, Violet's also small. So they would make a great pair, but like, okay, who knows? And then we get to threshing and I was like,
Yeah.
I was
Technically, we did call her being bonded to both, but we said individually. We didn't think both of them.
literally.
But yeah, I really like
And
the
you
way
didn't think they
did that.
would get bonded within the next couple of chapters.
Yeah, I didn't think they'd do that. Yeah, that was a surprise to me.
But I think they
but
did
it
it
didn't
well,
feel
though.
rushed. Yeah,
Yeah, no, they did it. Rebecca Yarros wrote this so well because it makes sense why Taryn chose Violet. He said it like he's said another thing too that I didn't quite include, but Violet had thought to herself or said to herself, I didn't think I would make it this far. And Taryn replies, well, that's something we both have in common then.
yeah,
Because I also didn't think that way.
yeah, because of his past writer, no? Because
Exactly.
now that we learned more in this bit that we read, like a dragon losing their rider can also kill them. Like, depending on how strong
Their
the
bond
is.
was.
And even how short the bond was, no? Because they had to kill
Amber.
Well, no, they've been bonded for a while, right?
Yeah.
She's a 30 or something like that. No?
Yeah, she's a wing leader, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, wing leader. So
And
yeah, they've been bonded for a while. So yeah, that's why that hurt. So yeah, never mind.
I think it's the stronger the bond is, the more likely it is for it to really damage the dragon or like even potentially kill them if the rider dies.
Yeah.
So essentially the bond that now Violet is going to have with Taryn is going to be stronger than his past bond with his other rider, and that makes it's so huge because Taryn is bond to Scale, and they have such a deep bond. From what I read, it's the strongest bond in decades. No.
Yeah. Yeah, because of the mate, basically.
Yeah. And Scale has a very strong connection to Xaden, so if Scale dies, Xaden dies, and he very much values his life.
Yeah.
And so, oh my, your thoughts?
I don't know how to feel about the fact that they're what they call it, tethered. Yeah, I didn't really care for that, just because I feel like that was the excuse to make them enemies into lovers. I do like that now it adds a little bit of stake to Xaden's desire to kill Violet, I guess. But then to me, it's also like, all right, we're just kind of forcing that to happen.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like he always had some sort of hate towards her. But at the same time, there were so many moments where he could have killed her, but he didn't prior to her being bonded to Taryn. Like, I feel like he knows something else.
I just think it goes back to what we said in episode 1. He just likes a respectful fight. He didn't want to kill just easy prey.
See, and this is where I feel like you're bringing in parts from like the Spider-Man game. I know this is like a little bit, this like jump into something else, but where you're thinking about what's his name?
Craven.
Yeah, Craven, and how he was like looking for a fair prey. I don't know if that's the thing with Xaden though.
Well, prey was just a word. It wasn't actual. Like, I'm not saying Xaden was hunting Violet. Like, I just think Zayden was the type to want a fair fight. He didn't want to just kill Violet because he knew she was weak. He's like at that in the beginning, I think he fully wanted to kill her, but he just didn't want to just kill because she was not paying attention or because she was weak.
Fair point. I will say this: I kind of like the whole. I kind of like the whole thing that they're tethered to one another because one, it does bring more. Like, there's more at stake now, but also two, it's a good kind of segue, or not segue, but a good little connection to the whole enemies to lover portion. However, there's still the whole, he's a wing leader. I don't know what year he's at, but she's still a first year. It's frowned upon if you go anywhere that's not within your chain of command, like Dane also said, which I am so glad Dane is no longer in the picture. He pisses me off so much. He just doesn't think Violet will ever get through it.
Yeah, no, Dane's a dumbass.
Yeah, he was never the one for her at all. He and then he tried to kiss her.
Yeah.
Like, dude,
yeah, that was stupid.
What pisses me off so much about Dane, let's get into it. What pisses me off so much about him is that he's so much, I am one to follow the rules and everything. Yet he very much tried to get Violet out of like the writer's quadrant and get her back to the scribes. That's breaking a rule.
Yeah.
Somehow you're breaking a rule. So you'll do that, but God forbid she brings in daggers or whatnot. Like, no, dude, she brought them in to protect herself, and it's a valid reason as to why she brought them in.
Yeah.
And it's just very telling. I think Violet, I'm really glad she never pinned that hard for him. She saw it for herself, and Zayden like showed her. She's like, when Zayden asked Dane, it's like, would you have bent the rules to save Violet in that moment? And he said no. That kind of, it showed Violet that, he doesn't really want to protect you that way. It shows another part of Dane.
Yeah.
And I think Violet needed to see that, and that helped her to not really want Dane that way.
Right. Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty dope. I don't know. He just irks me.
Yeah, he was annoying. He was. I don't know what other character I could describe, like how annoying he was.
Jack.
Huh?
Jack.
No, not from this book. I meant like in general, how I could compare Dane to somebody else. I don't think I've been annoyed in that sense.
No, but I think we both agreed, like from the first episode, that he's too overprotective, but he's the bad overprotective.
Yeah.
Like I like the way that Zayden is protective of her, or he has to kind of be protective towards her, but he also pushes Violet to be like, to get stronger. No?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
I'm still there with that whole thing. I don't know. For me, it seems like a forced thing. It's like, no, like I get it. Like you and a lot of other people probably like the enemies to lovers thing, but to me, it's like, can we just have enemies? Can we just have a story where it's just the hero and the villain?
Yeah, but then, this book, unfortunately, unfortunately for you, I guess, in a way, falls under the romance category. Yeah. It's a romance fantasy book. So,
but that's the problem. Like, and that's another thing for another day, but it's like I feel like fantasy nowadays, there's not one that's just fantasy. I feel like a lot of it
I would argue
romance.
against that. I think there are many fantasy books that don't have a romance element to it. You just have to find it. Just, because there's so many books. But another thing for another day. But what did you think about the small dragon
I think it's cute.
She's so cute.
For some reason, I like have like dragon tails in my head. I forgot which one.
So we have How to Train Your Dragon, but also Dragon Tales.
Yeah. Or like if we're thinking Barney, she'd be Baby Bop.
Listen, I love Andarna so much. She's like, maybe I was saving you. She's just so cute. But what kills me, I think what killed me so much was in Threshing when she looked back. She's like, can't you just use your claws or something? Yeah. And then she's like, oh, you don't even have claws. You have paws.
And then she kind of just sits there sometimes just tilting her head like a dog or something.
Yeah, like a dog. That's exactly what it's giving off.
See, like the pink one at the front. But instead of pink, it'd be gold. That's Andarna.
I love her. She's so cute. Which because apparently this gift that she has of stopping time is can potentially just be a momentary thing, and she can outgrow it.
Yeah.
Because she is still a baby. She is still very much a baby. But this power that she has right now is stopping time, which she has gifted the Violet. And Violet has to be very careful with it, because if she uses too much, she can potentially kill Andarna.
Yeah.
So Violet says she's going to be very careful with it. And Andarna's like, that's why I chose you. She's such a baby.
Yeah.
But like she even act like it. She's like, you're just a baby. She's like, she's like, you're just a hatchling. She's like, I am no hatchling. I am 2 years old. Like, what a cutie.
Granted, 2 years old is probably old in Dragon, because he's like, yeah, they mature in like 1 or 2 years.
Yeah,
so,
like Terran's like, she's very much mature. But like no one can tell Andarna what she can or cannot do.
Yeah.
And that's why she was at Threshing, essentially.
Yeah.
She wasn't supposed to bond. I don't think she even intended to bond. I think she was just probably just there to look.
Yeah.
And see how it is. But, she saw Violet and she's like,
but I think it's also important to note, Andarna is essentially Terran's and Scale's kid, almost.
Adopted,
yeah. So
because
Andarna lost her parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of took her, or it was mainly Scale who took Andarna under her wing, really. And so Terran was like, whatever. And so that's that relationship, I guess. Scale, basically, she's the one that called Terran.
Yes.
Scale called Terran to come protect Violet during that thing in Threshing, because Scale saw that she protected Andarna.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, she saw her protect her daughter, and even though she didn't have to, and so she's like, "Yo, come over here and get her."
Yeah. Come get your daughter. He comes over and he chooses Violet, and you know what? His reasons are so valid, and I think it's kind of cute. Like, I really like their relationship so far between Terran and Violet. It's very...
It's comical. It's like they're both just as stubborn as the other. And it's like,
very much. Like, there was one moment where I forgot what she was doing, but out of nowhere she feels like this immense hunger, and it's because Terran had just woken up.
Yeah.
And they have like a little bit of banter. And
it's like, you should really go eat something. He's like, well, you should too, dumbass. Like,
yeah, exactly, you should too. And I forgot what she did. I think she like talked back to him, and he channels his hunger like to her. Yeah. And he's like, keep it up. Like, I can literally do this all day.
Yeah.
But I really like how much he already cares for Violet, because like I had mentioned that not all dragons catch their rider if they fall off during like flight training and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
he's probably already caught her like 30 times.
So many times, because now she's got it down to a dozen times, which prior to that was more than a dozen times.
And that's in a day, by the way.
Yeah, that's in a day, literally in a day. But I like that he takes like her input as well, because at first he was just gonna keep her in, but she's like, I need to learn how to like actually ride. You're gonna have to loosen up some of your restraints so that I can actually learn.
Yeah.
And he really like empowers her to do it, so that she can learn. And she's now training with Imogen to strengthen like her thighs for it to be a lot sturdier to be on Terran.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like now she has more people rooting for her, but mainly because she is tied to Zayden.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's why Imogen is helping her. That's why Liam is essentially a bodyguard to Violet, but they're tethered to one another. And Zayden, I mean, I understand it, because Zayden is a strong rider.
Yeah.
He's overall a very strong cadet. And so, well, not a cadet now, a rider. But he's very strong, and it's important to keep him alive, because if you're going to potentially be at war, you want someone like him to be at the forefront.
Right. Yeah.
Which, I guess we can get into the little shady bits that you were talking about. I don't know. I want to hear your theory.
So the scroll that she received, that she was supposed to deliver to the professor, so they were reading it, right? But she made sure it didn't say classified anywhere, and she didn't see anything. Mm-hmm. So she was like, yeah, I'm free to discuss this with Liam, who was there at the time. And she was like, yeah, there was another, I guess another attack, right, at the front lines.
Somerton.
And they looted. What did they loot? What did they call it?
I don't remember.
I don't know. Well, they looted something. And so that was basically it. But essentially, it was just saying that it was just another attack, and it was closer.
Yes.
And so she was like, yeah, we'll probably hear more about this in the brief that we're going to have. So we'll just wait for it then. She delivers the scroll. They have their class. And in that class, she's like, the professor goes, it's another quiet day in the front lines. So let's talk about a battle that happened. She makes a joke. She's like, before some plumbing even was invented. Mm-hmm. So it's like a really old battle. And that's what they were working on for that day. And she looks at Liam and she's like, is she serious? Like, we literally read the scroll. There was a battle literally last night or the morning, whatever. I don't know what it was. But it was close. And it's something we should be alert about, but we're not even going over it. Like, it never even happened. And that's when Liam was like, are you sure it didn't say classified? She's like, I might have missed it, but I made sure because knowing Violet, she was going to be a scribe. Yeah. So she's more than aware of where it would say classified.
Exactly.
Or what classified information even looks like. I mean, hell, she was reading the scroll and then she was like, oh, wait, I should check if it's classified first. She's checked and she shared it. So she's more than aware of what she read. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're just ignoring it too is kind of like
so weird. I want to know if maybe someone there has to be no way that someone could have just taken off the classified words on it and then it show up as classified to the professor. Or why would the professor not mention it if they had read the scroll?
That leads me to believe that there's something going on in like the upper levels. Like, it's like they're hiding that info from them. Like, either that or there's some treason maybe building up. They're letting people in.
Interesting.
Right? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. A person who has a dragon, and Professor Kaori, he has a dragon, and from what we have understood, a dragon will not bond to someone who will threaten their home. So right. I don't think it's anything against Professor Kaori.
No, yeah.
But I'm wondering if they feel like this is some information that the like the riders or the cadets, because I think that's still like a class between riders and cadets now.
Mm-hmm.
Like they shouldn't know just yet. But why not if it doesn't say classified?
I just don't know if it's going to be someone that doesn't have a dragon that is letting the enemy get in, essentially, or supplying. It would look like a loot, but maybe they were really supplying them with stuff, and they made it look like a loot or something. And I'm not saying it's Professor Coyote. Maybe he just never got the scroll.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was delivered to him, but before they could even read it or whatever, it was taken. I don't know. But I just feel like there's information being hidden from the rest of the writers.
Do you think it's a scribe that was also there? Remember, there was another professor that she was supposed to be like his star pupil. She was supposed to be his star pupil. I think his name was Professor Markham?
Yeah, from the scribes, yeah.
You think it might be him?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't know. I mean,
he wouldn't have a dragon. He's just there as a scribe. A thought.
Yeah.
Potentially. But yeah, I guess then the question turns to, who would it be then?
Yeah.
Oh, I think within the next couple of chapters we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
It has to be. But I wanted to go back to threshing. I'm still kind of mad that Jack made it through.
Oh yeah, that coward. Yeah.
Like, he did not deserve a dragon at all.
Yeah.
And I'm glad Oren eventually died due to Zayden, and then Taryn scorched Tynan. So thank you so much, Taryn. I love you. Because Tynan was pissing me off.
Oh, but the way that the killings were like described, like at threshing in the line of dragons, I could picture it perfectly. Like I said it in the first episode too. It's like, this is actually a movie, like happening in my head, and just the way they deliver the lines and stuff like that. Like I think it was, who was it at the end that got flamed or scorched at the end? Was it Luca?
Luca, yeah.
Yeah, like I think it was Rydok that was saying, like Luca was annoying, like it was insufferable, and then you just, as they were walking out of that, they just hear the flames and the roars, and they feel the heat, and then he turns around and he's like, I guess the dragons thought the same thing too, and they just keep walking. I was like, yo, like
what an iconic moment.
Yeah.
I loved it. Like I really enjoyed my time reading like these set of chapters so much.
Yeah.
The descriptions, the storytelling, it just was so seamless, and it's been a while since I've had a book like make me react out loud, and this book did it. It's been a while since I'm like, ooh, like I texted you. I was like, dude, these chapters right now, like I finished the whole book in one sitting. Did I not?
Yeah, you did tell me you finished all the chapters.
Yeah. I think it took me about 2-3-ish hours to finish these sets of chapters. And I feel like it took me longer just because I kept having to pause. But I had like a little timer on there, and I kept having to pause because I would send you a message. I wouldn't necessarily talk to you about it. I would just tell you, dude, I am squealing. Like, the only thing you can hear in this apartment is just me. I'm like, yes. When they were fighting, I was rooting for Violet. When the whole dragon in threshing, the whole like dragon picking thing happened in threshing, I was also rooting for Violet. I'm pretty sure Grease just looked at me like, what the heck is this person, like, what's going on with her?
Yeah,
I'm kind of nervous. But oof, I'm stoked. I really like Jacinia, the scribe who signs.
Oh yeah,
I really like that. I really like that they included that little
detail.
Bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was so close. I'm like, did you see this? Did you see that? There's a lot there's so much of me just wanting to go to you. I'm like, did you see this? What do you think? But like, I have to wait until the podcast.
Yeah.
I have to rein it in. But I'm stoked. I'm really enjoying this so far, like this book, and I'm really stoked to see what happens. What do you think we're gonna see in the next few chapters?
I think we're gonna find out more info as to why we didn't get that brief of that little incident.
Challenges are starting soon, by the way.
What are they? Squad battles?
Challenges.
The squad challenges, they call it, or squad battles?
I think they just call them challenges.
Yeah, they're starting soon. Who is it that wants to fight? Is it? Yeah,
it's Jack.
Jack.
It's Jack.
Yeah. Jack was like, "Oh, I'll get my opportunity sooner or later." Obviously, Xaden isn't gonna let that happen, not because of her, but because of him.
That man values his life way more.
Yeah.
I also feel like, we're gonna get a challenge soon. I feel like we're gonna have some more fights. We're gonna hopefully figure out what's going on as to why they never discussed that scroll in battle brief. But I feel like we're gonna figure out another piece or two of the puzzle there, because we already went through the biggest portion, which is threshing, the gauntlet, like the dragon choosing. I think we're finally gonna figure out what Terran's or what signet Violet is gonna have, because Terran, when he is out here mating with Scale, he finally decided to channel to
Is
Violet.
that what that was? I thought it was decided that it wasn't.
No,
that wasn't, because wasn't she just feeling the emotions that he was feeling?
No, because remember, prior to that happening, Violet heard Terran and Andarna say in her head that she's ready.
Yeah.
He's like, yes, she is.
Yeah.
And so I think he finally started to channel to her, but it just so happened that he also decided to get a little bit freaky that day, that night.
Which I also think was stupid, but
I think that's crazy.
And I just think it's stupid that
so hilarious
that the writer can feel that too, and then that's obviously the excuse of why Violet and Xaden are going to end up.
But again, remember, their dragons are mated to one another, I know so that. I guess so. But yeah, it, like you said, it is an excuse, but it's an excuse to kind of bring that up per se. So I think we're gonna find out more of what her signet power is, and then I think we might get maybe another kiss between Xaden and Violet, which I'm more than happy, because I feel like the two kissing scenes that we got in this one, we hated the one with Dane and she hated it as well, so that love triangle is officially done, which I'm happy about. And this one with Xaden still seems like not something that should be happening, but she definitely wants it. But we'll see, I guess. Next week we'll be reading going over chapters 23 through 32. Hell yeah. And Senor, you finally decided what next month's book is?
Yeah, so I decided to do the 2018 book, Circe, by Madeline Miller. I wanted to go into the Greek mythology side of things, because I was like, I've had enough, and like, I've made sure there was no smut in it or anything. I was like, I need something else right now.
I guess.
Like, it was, if it was going to be something that I chose, it was going to be like, all right, I needed something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, what better place to go than mythology, something that we both would enjoy. And it works
out because I already have that in my bookshelf, but I never got to read it.
Yeah, that's one of the 80 we can knock off your to be read list from 5 years plus.
Just a little bit.
But yeah, that's the next one.
So if you don't have it, I highly recommend checking it out on the Libby app, because with it being a book that has been out for now, like, what, 4+ years now?
Yeah.
I think it's readily available through Libby. Hopefully, fingers crossed. If not, check out your local bookstore to grab it, or Barnes & Noble if you must. But a local bookstore as a first option for sure. Library, Libby, check it out, but that'll be for the month of April. However, we still have 2 more weeks left to go over the Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and I'm really liking this book so far.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next week to cover chapters 23 through 32, and that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Bye-bye.
See you.